So every cybersecurity professional should have their own personal lab environment. Now, to you more advanced guys out there, or even intermediate guys, you know what I'm talking about when I say this. But if you're newer, maybe you don't. And maybe if you are a little intermediate and you're like, man, I've been slacking on this because I've been there as well. I'm just going to explain to you what it is. And, in future videos, if there is interest, I can show you how we can set up some lab environments and test out some stuff. I think it'd be a cool project personally. But let's get right into it. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brian from elevatecyber. Now, every security professional should have their own personal lab environment, especially if you're on the offensive side. But even if you're on the defensive side, it's still extremely valuable. A very good way to learn, to train. And everyone that's really high level in this field, they do this, right? They have their lab environment. So what do I mean when I say lab environment first and foremost? Well, a lab environment is basically, it could be, typically, there's so many different ways you can do this, right? If you have a ton of hardware sitting around, you could do this physical, but I'm just going to tell you about the most standard way to build a lab environment. The most standard way nowadays is through virtualization. You have a some kind of virtualization software, maybe VirtualBox, maybe VMware, whatever you prefer, doesn't really matter. But within that, you have a bunch of different VMs, right? So you have like your attacker box. Maybe that's Kali Linux. Maybe that's some kind of other distribution. Completely up to you. I mean, ideally, you have a variety, right? Maybe you have a Windows attacker box, maybe a like Ubuntu attacker box, a Kali Linux, different stuff maybe, let's just say. And then you have some of your test boxes that you're attacking, right? And so basically all you need for a lab environment really is two VMs when it comes down to it, right? You need your attacker box and your target box, right? And so on your target box, it could be anything that you're looking to test. I mean, it could even be a Windows domain controller if you want to practice Active Directory. And then you can practice configuring Active Directory and, maybe intentionally configuring it in a vulnerable manner to exploit it, right? Maybe you're using some of the in-packet tools to, gain some information and pull off some Active Directory attacks, right? Like golden ticket and things like that. Maybe you're doing some Kerber roasting, right? Perhaps you're doing some recon on the internal network using a tool like Bloodhound or whatever, mapping it out. So basically, if you wanted to learn Active Directory, for example, you would have a Windows domain controller, and you could pretty much put all the stuff on the domain controller. You could create all your Windows AD users within there and set up your Active Directory domain completely just with one. You don't have to have the most complicated Active Directory setup. You could literally do it on one box if you really wanted to. And then, of course, you could always add in more boxes as you go, more Windows servers to your domain as you grow it out, if that's something you see value in. But yeah, to get started, you could do something like that. Also, I mean, you don't even have to go the Windows route if you want to maybe work on your web app pen testing. Maybe there is a CMS that you want to practice exploiting. Like maybe you want to work on exploiting WordPress. Well, what you could do is you could, set up a WordPress site and host it on one of your VMs, right? Like on a Linux VM or something like that. And then you can intentionally install it with some vulnerable plugins, and then you can practice, getting a shell on that system. And you're doing all of this within your VM, preferably not connected to, like, bridge to the rest of your network, but isolated in, maybe a NATed configuration, something like that, where it's like just your VMs are talking to each other. So it's completely safe, things like that. Now, for other people that are like more on the blue team side, what they like to do a lot of times is they like to do some malware analysis, and they'll put malware actually on a isolated Windows box, and they'll analyze the behavior of the malware and the things that it does. So a lot of the blue team guys are really good about the lab environment stuff. But what I found is a lot of times the guys that are on the offensive side, they don't utilize this as much as they really should, because it's a great tool. Like I was showing in a video way back, is you can actually go on Exploit DB. You know how we're going to Exploit DB all the time to find exploits, right? Well, you can actually download the vulnerable versions of these softwares so that you can put it on your target system, and then you can stand that up in your lab environment. You can practice exploiting it, and practicing in this way it's a very good way to not only understand how to attack and exploit something, but you're going to know why, because you're going to have to set it up in that way in some cases, right? If you're just using software that is vulnerable, that version happens to be vulnerable to an RCE or something, maybe not so much. But in a lot of cases, like setting this stuff up, it's going to teach you a lot of stuff that you wouldn't otherwise learn. And you're going to also learn how to mitigate these vulnerabilities, because that's another thing you can practice is like, okay, when we stand up something vulnerable, exploit it, and then apply a fix to it that can prevent the attack. So that's going to really help you on the job when you have to, after you find the flashy vulnerability, then you have to explain it to whoever's in charge of remediating that vulnerability. If you know how to remediate it, how to mitigate the vulnerability, it's going to be a lot easier to explain that, to relay that to upper level management and the people actually in charge of remediating it. So definitely something that has a ton of value. And another little bonus project for you guys you could always do. This one's a little bit more in depth, but you could create your own web app using, maybe a LAMP stack, which is like Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, or, whatever technology stack you want. You can create a web app, intentionally make it vulnerable, add different functionality to it, like maybe a login that, is not secure, or a weak password they can try to brute force, whatever it is. You can, maybe don't implement CSRF tokens on post requests and practice carrying out CSRF attacks, things like that. And that way you can actually, this is going to take a little bit more time because you're going to have to code it up, or at least find a lot of code online to help you out. But then you could actually exploit various web vulnerabilities and actually patch them yourself through code. Now that's like I said, more advanced. But if you do take the time to do that, you're going to know web app pen testing so much better than anyone who just went through Juice Shop or something, which those people are going to learn quite a bit too. Definitely recommend Juice Shop. It's a great application to learn web app hacking. But if you actually coded it and you fix it through your own code, then you're going to understand this stuff very well, and it's going to be a lot easier for you to relay information like this back to development teams. So something to keep in mind, a little bonus for you if you want to try that out. So hopefully this video helped. I'll just wrap it up there. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, hit the like button as well to help get this message out there. And if you guys are pretty eager on getting started here, check out what you need to know for OSCP. It'll give you a good understanding of some various techniques, tools, things you can maybe bring into your own lab environment when you're practicing. Even if your goal isn't to get OSCP, there's a lot of pretty good knowledge there. So yeah, I'll see you guys right over there, and thanks for watching.